and welcome everyone. I'm your host Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist, space weather guy, your cosmic bro, here to help you understand what is happening with the Earth energetically. Like what is actually happening, what you may not be told through the mainstream media, whatever. We just actually track everything. So earthquakes, volcanoes, space weather, solar flares, cosmic events, and more. We have a lot happening. We've had a lot happen. We are right now in a period of critical planetary geometry. Just now at the end of that, though we do have a very critical alignment coming up involving this comet around the 25th, 26th of April, but already it's starting to influence us. So what is happening? Well, we have this comet here. This is C2025 R3 PANSTARRS. It just performed its perihelion. It is, that means it just has closest approach to the sun. You'll notice it has a very, very long tail here. This is like 100 million kilometers long. For reference, the sun-Earth distance is about 150 million kilometers. And this comet, its perihelion, its closest to the sun, was 0.5 astronomical units. The distance from the sun to Earth is approximately 1 AU. There's a slight variation. We'll talk about that more. It's important for what I'm discussing with this video, with this comet. But 1 AU, this comet was as closest on the 19th of April, 2 days ago, at 0.5 AU. And well, if the distance between the sun and Earth is 150 million kilometers, and this tail, as you can see, is about 100 million or more kilometers in length, that plasma tail is going to sweep by the Earth. We see this very clearly with our stereo head HI2 imagery. This is from a probe that is ahead of Earth in its orbit, always looking at us. The sun takes different measurements. Very useful for space weather forecasting. We see it show up very clearly here. And so this is for the 18th and the 19th of April. The latest imagery from today and yesterday doesn't look as clean. So it's a little bit more jittery and it'd be too visually confusing to show it. Though I'll probably update that imagery and post it on X at Stefan Burns Geo once they clean it up a little bit. You know, there's transmission times between the satellites and Earth and stuff. But this is going to sweep right over our planet clearly in the next few days. And this is all happening during a critical convergence. And really, I'm kind of unraveling a whole mystery here as to what's happening around April 23rd. So things are getting very, very interesting. So there's a lot to cover. Let's just kind of go through it step by step. A lot of it actually involves the moon. There's some really powerful lunar energies that are active at this moment in time, which I think paints a more complete story as to what's unfolding at this moment in time. But when it comes to these sort of space weather events and you have the plasma from a tail of a comet hitting Earth, and we're also going to be already in a special sort of solar wind structure called a high-speed stream from a coronal hole, things could get wild. We already just had a magnitude 7.4 or 7.5 earthquake strike Japan yesterday on the most critical day of the planetary geometry that I forecasted all the way back in January. That was 420, magnitude 7.5 earthquake. We've been having more earthquake activity since then, so there's now a bit of a swarm, no big aftershock for Japan. So the Japanese are worried that a megaquake could be coming. The risk right now, they say, is 10% higher or 10 times higher than normal. It's certainly possible. So there's a lot happening. Okay, so let us get right into it. And to do that, where should we start? Well, let's start with kind of what's been happening. And to do that, let's look at our real-time solar wind. But we'll go through this pretty quickly for everybody. Here we have our past 7 days, a real-time solar wind here. Turn myself off really quick. And we see the magnetic field up top. We see the plasma velocity here in purple. So this is the solar wind velocity. You see that we went from low values of about 300, even under 300 kilometers per second, and then jumped up to about 500, 550 kilometers per second. We've been in it for a while. We see the magnetic field was strongest up top. But look at our magnetic fluctuations. We had 2 periods of G2 moderate geomagnetic storming. So we have our G2 geomagnetic storms here, and then a G1 storm. Basically, we've been in geomagnetic storming now for like 5 days. So Earth has already been fluctuating with its magnetic field at moderate to minor levels for the past 5 days. And that means that Earth is already kind of perturbed energetically, okay? Then you add on into this the fact that we had this magnitude 7.5 earthquake that struck Japan. Now, USGS shows that as a 7.4. The Japanese have it clocked in at a 7.5. Specifically, Japan's meteorological agency, 7.5. So we see that right there. And here are the aftershocks for this, the highest being a magnitude 5.6, 5.6, 5.4. So with the 7.5 earthquake, you expect probably a magnitude 6.5 to pop off afterwards, anytime in the next week. We're still well within the time window. We haven't had it yet. This occurred right when we were in that coronal hole high-speed stream, which is what we've talked about for eons now and how they're well connected to earthquake activity. So in fact, with the 3 seismic bursts that we've had in Japan, we've seen how that's been linked with these coronal holes. I can show you that really quickly. Let me just pull up these images that I have. So that would be right here. And here we have and I'll turn myself off. Here we have the 7th of November. There's the coronal hole in the geoeffective position. On the 9th of November is when we had a magnitude 6.8, 6.4, and a whole bunch of other earthquakes pop off. That was our first sign of like, okay, Japan is waking up in a big way. Here's the coronal hole in the geoeffective position on the 3rd of December, about 1 rotation later. And well, we had our magnitude 7.6 earthquake strike Japan, roughly same location, slightly to the north, I believe, on the 8th, so within a week of this happening. And here's the coronal hole location that we just had in April on the 18th, but you see it's right there at the very end of the 18th universal time, and that earthquake popped off on the 20th, around 7 a.m., I think, universal time in the morning. So we see this clear connection between these coronal holes and the earthquake activity. And here specifically, we can look at the total seismic energy release and equivalent magnitude for the 3 periods of time. So we have the 6.8, 6.4, and everything else sequence, cumulative magnitude 6.9, about 400 gigawatt hours of energy from that. Here's the magnitude 7.6 and other earthquakes bumping into a magnitude 7.62 overall. Total energy for that, 4,700 gigawatt hours, or about 4,800 gigawatt hours. And here we see our 7.5, that comes in about 3,100 gigawatt hours. So this effectively right now means that we are in basically a double burst of activity for Japan. This could be considered our foreshock in November, our warning, 1 month warning to this 7.6 that occurred just very close by, like within, I think, 50 kilometers, no more than 100 kilometers. I think it's close to like 50 or 30 kilometers nearby. That's a 7.6 with some aftershocks, a 6.7 notably. And then you see again our 7.5. So they're very close in magnitude. So the point of that is that's basically a double burst. Now we see these double bursts at times with earthquakes where it's just a 1, 2 and they're similar magnitude and that's it. It is more likely as a result of there having been a double burst that there could be something bigger coming. That could be all she wrote. The fact that we haven't had a significant aftershock here yet, it's not kind of following the normal sequence, and there's some other evidence suggesting that a larger move is imminent, it's something to be very mindful of. we could be seeing a magnitude 8 earthquake here in the very near future. Could happen with the next rotation of that large coronal hole. We have this other one coming up right now that I can show you right here. This guy right there is following up behind. There's actually another one behind it. So we have this triple sequence of coronal holes that we get every month because of the solar rotation is about 28 days. That maybe that's enough to do it. It's been loaded with energy, right? The plates are always shifting, strain's always accumulating, and these kind of act as a trigger, it seems, to release this energy from the Earth. It could happen. It couldn't happen at all. Maybe there is no megaquake. But if there is going to be a megaquake for Japan, I think it's going to be magnitude 8.5 or greater. Because if these are foreshocks, the 7.6 in December, the 7.5 this month, again, USGS showing it being 0.1 magnitude less, but the Japanese number is 7.5, then it would suggest an earthquake 1 magnitude higher, which would be 8.5. So that's certainly possible. So that is the main thing that's been happening with earthquake activity. One counterpoint against it perhaps being a megaquake imminent is the fact that we haven't been having reciprocal antipodal activity around here. And for really big earthquakes, you kind of expect some earthquake activity to pop off near the antipode like we had last year with the magnitude 8.8 megaquake Kamchatka, which is up here. Well, the rough antipode location for that is Drake Passage, and we had them popping off back and forth. So we haven't been seeing that. So, I mean, that's not guaranteed definitive that that's it, but it's something to be mindful of. So we could have this happen very soon. Like right now, the Japanese are worried for the next week that it could happen. And while we have this whole thing coming up with the comet, we also saw in our Schumann resonances out of Tomsk, Russia, again, watch my cursor here, vertical electric field, we see this energy right there in the Schumann resonances, a weird signal in the 12 to 13 hertz range, and that earthquake popped off right about here, the magnitude 7.5. So this appears associated with that, and that's quite significant because that was an earthquake that took place off the coast of Japan, lots of ocean water to absorb that, yet we seemingly still get a response before, during, and well after that earthquake occurred in the 12 to 13 hertz band, which is not a Schumann resonance band and also not typically where you see pre-earthquake signals. So it's a bit bizarre. I can't definitively say that's what they're connected to, but it lines up pretty perfectly, so it seems likely. So if we go back to our comet here, let's give our comet a look. Here we see C2025 R3 PANSTARRS imaged by Michael Yeager and Gerald Raymond back on the 18th of April. You see this really long tail to it. So it is visible to the naked eye. If you go out early morning, a dark sky location, people are reporting that they can see it with the naked eye. I was able to see it with my own C-Star S50. Early morning, I did not see it with binoculars or the naked eye, but I have a lot of light pollution. But it was starting to get an image of it, and I took that image on the 19th, early morning. Well, I tried to, it didn't work out, unfortunately, or else I'd be showing it to you. But it was showing up like the stacking was occurring, it was resolving, it was pretty cool. So this is a significant comet. And the crazy thing about this comet, as I've mentioned, is that it is coming in exactly at a time when Earth is at a very special point in its normal resonance rhythm with the sun. So let me show that to you. I'll explain it again briefly. So the Earth has a perihelion, a point in its orbit where it's closest to the sun. This is January 3rd. That's 147 million kilometers. Then it has its furthest from the sun. That's its aphelion. That's 152 million kilometers. That's on July 4th or so. So as you can see, it's closer and then it's further. That means it's getting more light radiation. it's experiencing stronger gravity. And then all of a sudden, less light radiation, less gravity. Every 6 months, it's going through this pulsation. I can show you that clearly here. We see this pulsation, and here is where it's at perihelion, that's aphelion. So this is like a regular rhythm and resonance that the Earth has. If you take the golden ratio in between these dates, you land on April 23rd. So the perihelion of R3 PANSTARRS is on the 19th of April. Its Sun, Comet, Earth alignments on the 25th, 26th, effectively perfectly situated between those two significant dates. You have the 23rd, which is exactly when Earth will be at its golden ratio point in this natural resonance. And this is the main gravitational field that we're in, right? That of the sun, light radiation. It's a significant point. Anything that involves the golden ratio, I found, Fibonacci spirals and more, is really important. The whole universe is spiral and fractal. So you have to pay attention to these like nodal points, you could say. This comet is coming in and triggering that exactly, precisely, with this alignment. Here we see it on the 23rd. It'll start to appear in our coronagraph imagery around the 23rd, maybe even a little earlier, the 22nd. It's going to start showing up in our coronagraph imagery. I can show you what that will look like with some imagery here. Let me show you this. Here we see Comet C flying through our coronagraph in October 2024. Now this one's coming from below the ecliptic plane, shooting up like this. PANSTARRS will be going down like that. But we see it's a very bright comet, very obvious in the coronagraph. We see all this solar activity around this time. So keep that in mind. We also may get some significant solar activity. If we look at our sun right now, we see this coronal hole. We'll be in that high-speed stream around the 24th of April. That's the estimate. Certainly we'll be in it when we have the perfect Sun, Comet, Earth alignment, 25th, 26th. You see this sunspot group right there? It's starting to become active. We've had a whole bunch of low-grade solar flares today as a result of this sunspot rapidly expanding. So that is something to watch. It's not crazy yet, but it's definitely something to watch. Here we can see that sunspot right there. So you see that it's, it's growing. It's definitely picking up, and it'll be Earth center direct right around this alignment period, because today is the 21st. It's going to take about 5 days to get right Earth center. It's going to be right on that perfect Sun, Comet, Earth alignment. We can look at that with our sky live here. Here we see the 23rd, but if we go down 2 days, here we see that alignment really shaping up, and here we see it is perfect in terms of latitude, or I guess I should say it's longitudinally perfect right here on the 26th, and the comet will be slightly below the ecliptic plane at this time, but effectively right on it, baby. So here's the thing. We saw a lot of solar activity last time with Shuchen-Shan, which is a great comet of 2024, clearly putting on a show. All those particles there, that snow, that's from a proton radiation storm from a big solar flare hitting Earth. So you see that big launch right there. There's the big one. So we had some big space weather. It was like a G4 plus, G5 minus geomagnetic storm that occurred on the 10th of October. And I forecasted that out back then accurately. It was severe to an extreme geomagnetic storm, really quite wild. So these comets seem to have a part to play with that, especially when they're fairly close into the sun around the orbit of Mercury. And that was Shuchen-Shan, and PANSTARRS is doing the exact same thing. It's right around the orbit of Mercury. If we go here, we can see it's slightly outside the orbit of Mercury around this time of the alignment on the 25th, 26th of April. Here's the difference though. We can look at R3 PANSTARRS one more time here. This again from the 18th and 19th. New imagery shows it also with this long tail, fluctuating with the solar wind, about 100 million miles or 100 million kilometers in length or so. We can also look at Shan with our stereo ahead imagery. And here we see it. So this is back in October, so we see the center of the galaxy right here. This is the Milky Way galaxy. This is where the sun is. We're seeing all these coronal mass ejections go out. But look at Shan. It didn't have this crazy long tail like R3 PANSTARRS. Now it has significant tail, but it's not stretching out 100 million kilometers. It was much more isolated in space, and it only really started to billow out once it already was above the ecliptic plane and Earth is no longer involved in the geometry and everything. So big difference right now between Shan in 2024 and PANSTARRS. And this guy is going to come in and perfectly, it looks like, slam Earth with its plasma tail. And we don't know exactly what that's going to do. But here's two more layers to add on to it. The fact that this is coming in right at that golden ratio moment in Earth's gravitational and light resonance with the sun indicates that that is an important inflection point. And now you have this activation of that with the comet, not only in terms of its gravity, though the gravity is going to be fairly, let's say, negligible because comets don't have that much density or mass to them. But it will form a strong connection with the Earth electromagnetically because of the plasma tail. And normally Earth goes around and in its cycle there's nothing interfering with this vector. Sometimes you get other planets interfering with its Sun-Earth vector and that gravitational and light modulation as it gets closer and further away. You know, sometimes Mercury or Venus jumps in front with an inferior conjunction, something like that. But usually it's nothing in between. So there's really no change, sudden change. This time we're getting a big change to come in right at that critical moment. And here's where things, I think, get really interesting. We can evolve into the conversation the sun, or the moon. So this is a Sun-Earth vector, okay? Let's go to our Stellarium view here. Oh, let's go to Stellarium. Here we are. And this is, again, a Sun-Earth vector. Well, Earth is orbiting around the sun. It has this angular velocity. And in fact, the Earth and the moon are very odd because the overall angular velocity of the Earth-Moon system is very high. It's the highest of all the inner planets. The moon is actually very bizarre, and I think I'm going to do a whole podcast on the moon. We'll see if Randall Carlson wants to join in on that. I may invite him on and do a podcast on the moon with him and just bounce ideas around. But the moon is very odd. And the original idea for the Earth is that it was forming a satellite system like we would expect, like we see with the other planets, and then somehow the moon got incorporated. Either it was captured or there was a collision that then created the moon. The giant impact theory is the leading hypothesis at this moment in time with the mainstream. I'm actually starting to lean away from the giant impact hypothesis, and I think it's more likely to have been captured. Because there's evidence that the spin period of the Earth originally was like 4 hours. So it was spinning very, very fast, which geology would have been totally different then. The bulge at the equator would have been way bigger. And then when let's say the moon did get captured, if the moon did get captured, it then started to alter its orbit around the Earth as a result of tidal forces, slowing the spin of the Earth down, transferring angular momentum into the moon. So now in the Earth-Moon system, the moon has 80% of the angular momentum. The moon has 4 times more angular momentum than the Earth does. So it's 80% of the net for the angular momentum. This is the angular momentum of Earth spinning on its axis versus the orbital angular momentum of the moon. And angular momentum is very important as it relates to torque and exerting torque on things. So that's important as it relates to earthquakes and geology and plate tectonics and all that stuff. And we know that the moon has a tremendous influence over earthquakes, earth tides, and all these things. It's all super connected together, though we don't know that much, actually. I think a lot of people think that we know more than we do. The moon will be at its first quarter exactly square to the Earth-Sun alignment on the 24th of April. And so here's the interesting story that we have with the moon, okay? Here we see, and we'll have to go back just a little bit. I guess we'll go back an hour. Is that right? Maybe just make this like 20 or yeah, something like that. So here we see back on the 18th of April, we see the moon here, new moon, 4% waxing crescent there. And if we go forward in time, well, it disappears underneath. But basically, the moon swept by, and we'll have to go forward again. It's difficult to get things aligned when it's exactly at sunset. But let's just do it here. Yeah. So here's the 18th of April. We see that moon went conjunct Venus. That's a powerful energy signature. We just had a rebirth of the moon. The moon containing 80% of the angular momentum of the Earth-Moon system, which is very important as it relates to earthquakes and more. Then it goes in, and immediately after that new moon, it conjuncts Venus in Taurus, the constellation of Taurus. Boom. That's a pretty strong placement. There's a journey that this moon is going through. Then if you go forward a day, the sun is setting, right? You look up, the moon is now higher in the sky. Every single night, the moon is rising higher in the sky at sunset. So right now, when the domain of the sun is diminishing, you look at the moon, it's higher and higher and higher in the sky. Now it's gone conjunct Venus. We also see nearby Venus. We'll see Uranus. I'll have to turn the atmosphere off, I think, for us to see Uranus. There's Uranus. So we see that the moon also then swept by and conjuncted the Pleiades and Uranus, which is a powerful energy signature. And right now we have a Venus, we have an Earth-Venus-Uranus alignment. That really goes exact on the 26th. So now the moon's higher in the sky, it's getting brighter. It just now swept over Uranus and the Pleiades on the 19th. It's in Taurus, which is one of its domiciles. We go forward and we see it move into the constellation of Gemini. That's today. Tomorrow it's conjunct Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system, also benefic. And then on the 23rd, on that day, that nodal point in this golden ratio nodal point for the Sun-Earth resonance I've described, we see the moon enter into a first quarter phase. So it'll be square to that Sun-Earth axis. And that's also active on the 24th. It will be in its home sign of Cancer, which if you research into this stuff, is a sign associated with power. So there's all this pop astrology stuff as it relates to the sign of Cancer or the constellation or whatever of Cancer, right? But fundamentally, it's a very powerful archetypal energy. And you see this time and time again, that Cancer is one to watch. That is the domicile of the moon. We see the moon there at that critical time. So it's not just a Sun, Comet, Earth alignment. It is also a Sun, Comet, Earth alignment with the moon exactly square. So right at that critical time, you don't have the moon in alignment with it, which would kind of be adding its energy into the whole mix. You have it perfectly positioned with this angular momentum to tug on it from the side. Again, 80% of the angular momentum in the Earth-Moon system is with the moon. So right at that period of maximum torque is when you have this comet fly and activate that vector, which is normally not activated. And that plasma tail from R3 PANSTARRS will be connected to Earth, and we will also be in a high-speed stream from a coronal hole on the sun, all in this time frame. So there's this incredible connection between the sun, the comet, Earth, at this time, exactly when the moon is swinging through and really has the ability to kind of torque on the planet from the side. I think that's really significant. And I think we still have this planetary alignment effectively in play. This one really in play, Earth, Venus, Uranus. Again, that's like on the 26th. And I really don't know exactly how this is going to unfold, whether it'll be something significant, but this story of the moon progressing from new moon, conjunct Venus, conjunct Uranus, conjunct the Pleiades, conjunct Jupiter, all these super benefic placements or just points and energies, and then it goes into that first quarter, and it's at first quarter, when the sun is going down, the moon will be exactly overhead at zenith. Right? Because it's 90 degrees. So if the sun's on the horizon, the moon's going to be directly overhead. It just all feels very, very profound and significant to me. So that is really, I think, quite powerful. And we have that happening effectively right now. Now, another thing to keep in mind, just for this moment in time, is that we have the Lyrids peaking tonight and tomorrow night. And this is a meteor stream that we encounter every single year. Sometimes it's very, very rich with meteors, like 700 an hour. Other times it's not that much, not too many boom shakalakas. But this is another energetic influence that's active around this time, slightly before this golden ratio nodal point and before the alignment of the comet with the sun and the Earth and more. But something also to point out. So things are looking pretty dynamic right now. I would not be surprised if we see some activity out of Japan. I can show you one more thing here as well. We have Sakurajima volcano increasing in eruptive activity. Basically, in Japan, this is south part of the island, but this eruption right here is from today, April 21st, and the ash plume went up about 3,500 meters. We see it right here. There's ash raining down on people. We'll see that coming up. Erupted on the 20th. It's been erupting consistently now, each one getting bigger, and Japanese scientists are also now measuring ground deformation. So yeah, this is getting big. So they're measuring ground deformation at Sakurajima. So not only do you have this magnitude 7.5 earthquake that struck the 7.6 back in December, you're having their most active volcano literally deforming and erupting more often. But these are not big eruptions yet, but they could be. Also, Mount Fuji is swelling and refilling with magma very quickly. And volcanic tremors being noticed up in the north of Japan. So there's just a lot at play right now. And Earth being hit by this plasma tail of C2025, R3 PANSTARRS, I'm not sure it's necessarily going to alleviate these geologic or geophysical events to occur. It's more likely to activate them. Now, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. The Earth does what it does. Hopefully no one gets hurt or injured, and there's no property destruction or things of that nature. All creatures, great and small, hopefully everything's fine. But yeah, there's a significant chance of a follow-up event to occur in the days ahead, in the week ahead, basically. And again, the Japanese have issued that megaquake alert for the next week, saying the risk is 10 times higher than normal because we had that magnitude 7.5. fact that we also had the 7.6 in December, basically same location, double hit, could be all she wrote, could also be simply foreshock activity for a magnitude 8.5 or greater. That would be my estimate. I'd say 8.5 to 8.7 in the location that we are seeing. I'll pull that up one more time for you guys. And that would be right here. So I wouldn't be surprised if doesn't mean it's likely. I think the chance is maybe 5%, which is actually very high. But I would not be surprised if we got an 8.5 to 8.7 megaquake in this location in the near future. It could be in the next few days. It could also be with the next coronal hole rotation in about 25 days. With that big one that we just had, next time that rotates around, maybe that's what triggers it. But this whole comet alignment and the influence of the moon with its angular momentum perfectly coinciding with that plasma tail connecting to Earth, with Earth being in a high-speed stream, all this happening in the background just has me looking at this time period very, very carefully. So that is the update for today. Wanted to share that all with you. Thank you all so much for watching. Wishing each and every single one of you well. I will keep you up to date on all this, so please subscribe to the channel. Again, I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Thank you all so much. Have a great day or a great night. I'll see you all in the next video.